Have you ever thought about making a place to honor the men that have went on before you in your life? This wall is dedicated to my father-in-law and my dad. My dad passed away in December of this last year, and my father-in-law's been gone about 2 or 3 years. And anyway, so after everybody had went through the barns and the sheds and got stuff that they wanted out, then I went through and got some stuff, and I call it an honor wall. And it's just a wall of stuff. There's old tools, there's their hats. My father-in-law made birdhouses, his oil cans. You know, I'll give you a tour here in a little bit. Also, this stool belonged to my grandmother on my mom's side, and I used to crawl up and sit on it when I was a little girl, and they would fry bacon and eggs in their electric skillet. My dad passed away, like I said, in December of this last year, and he was a big hunter fisherman person. And so I've got his camouflage jackets and his coat and his hat and his fishing pole and his tackle box and his seine. And when I was a little girl, my sister and I our job was to go with him, mainly to keep him awake because he fell asleep a lot when he was driving and had several wrecks with the boat in the back end of we always had a 3-seater station wagon. But anyway, so our job was to help seine ponds for the little perch that we use to set the trot lines with. So my father-in-law, whose stuff is mainly on this side, he was a farmer. He drove a grader or bulldozer, I think it is, in World War II, and he was one on the storm the beaches of Normandy. And that takes a special kind of person. You know, these young men were young, you know, probably between 18 and 20 years old. And, you know, they went over and they had no idea if they'd be coming home or not. It was most likely they would not be coming home. He would rarely ever talk about his time overseas, his time, you know, the World War II. He would rarely talk about it. And you know, when those guys came home, they were not normal. Because of what they've seen, they could not have possibly been normal. But Gaylord came home, he married, he had started having little kids. He farmed for a while. I think they lost the farm. So he ended up he packed his wife and whatever they could get in a car, and I think at that time they had 2 little kids and maybe she was pregnant, loaded what they could get in the car up, went to Oregon for work, and he worked out there helping do logging and stuff for a period of time. I'm not sure how long. But anyway, he eventually came back and bought a farm, and that's the farm they lived on until they passed away. He had to go into a nursing home about a few months before he passed away. And but you could not take farming out of his blood. He loved his tractors, he loved his grader, he loved grading out ponds, he loved raising his crops, you know. And so we have. Okay, the first part of the honor wall here is there's an old oil can, and you can see a couple more up there, an old chain, a calf bottle. I'm sure they raised calves. There's trot lines and old bottles and his birdhouses. I don't know what this is. Looks like a piece of petrified wood. There's some old door handles out of the white metal, whatever that was. This is some tools that came from my dad's garage. I haven't sorted through those yet. An old hornet's nest, looks like. Here's kind of a cool old saw. This is just old stuff that was in the barn. Probably doesn't have any use for it again, except for something like an honor wall. Gaylord's old hat. That's kind of cool. This hat hung in his shed. Some just old tools, old license plates, old funnels, old saws. This is a squirrel feeder that was at my dad's, hanging on a tree over by his cabin. Some kind of a grappling hook. The old Ford sign. I like the old fly swatter made out of metal. old hammer. I think my brother-in-law said he remembers carrying this old jug. Here's the fish skeleton. I thought that's pretty cool. It's hung in his barn, and so now it's been moved to mine. Don't know what these tools are, so you'll just have to bear with me on that. A couple of old wooden chairs to go with the stove. Like I said, the stool that I used to sit on when I went to Grandma's house when I was a kid. There's an old lunchbox, the old coffee pot, the old tea kettle, and I think that was hanging in my dad's barn. And I remember that old tea kettle well, because that's how we heated our water. And my dad was a big fisherman, had a beautiful lake down by his house. So I've got his tackle box. He loved to hunt, so I've got his camouflage hat. The old tackle box, I'm not sure what that is. We used to go seining, my sister and I, and we'd seine the little ponds. That's some kind of horse stuff. Let's see, here's his coat. His name was Lawrence. There's his belt. Here's another hat, camouflage jacket that belonged to him. Here's his seine. Now the seine we used was one of these ones that wraps up and would go across the whole length of a pond. So, you know, they wouldn't be humongous ponds, but they would be pretty good sized. Back over here, here's a pick and an old army shovel. But I think that old pick is pretty cool too. But you know, they lived a hard life, and money did not come easily to them. And so I want to remember, you know, in this day and age, money is a little easier to come by, but I never want to be wasteful of it. You know, I always want to remember there's a generation that went on before me that struggled just to survive, that struggled to raise their kids. You know, I told Dawn, I was with her when she passed away, and I told her, I said, you know, Donna, you and Gaylor did a wonderful job raising a family. They had 3 boys and a girl. I said, raising a family and teaching them how to do right and teaching them how to work. And you raised them in the country where they had to work. And they may have been resentful at times of that, but the lessons that they learned, whether they know it or not, is invaluable. You know, so many times today, kids are raised in the city and they play video games and they don't know how to do the practical things in life, like work on tractors and work on lawnmowers and, you know, how to put motors together and take them apart and how to fix things that you didn't have the money to do, you know, on the farm. And so you had to learn how to fix things for yourself, and you had to learn how to maybe cobble things together. But I reminded them both, I was with both of them at the time that they passed away, and I reminded them both, you know, that they had made a difference in the lives of the generations coming after them, including mine, you know, because of the stories that I've been told and, you know, the things that they've told us, you know, even as a daughter-in-law. Donna used to tell me, you know, I was just like a daughter to her, and I appreciate that, you know, that she felt that way about me. And, you know, I just hope that as I carry on and pass things down to my kids, that even though we make mistakes, I hope that my kids see, you know, that what I am trying to teach them and trying to demonstrate to them is how to live a good life and a productive life. And that when you're done, the Lord says, you know, that we were a good and faithful servant. So this little memory wall is very special to me, this part of my shop/barn, because it is the things passed down from those that went before me and lived a much harder life than I live. And I hope this encourages you to maybe make a memory wall in a corner of your barn of things that maybe belonged to your father and grandfather, and so that your kids and your grandkids can come back and you can show them this stuff, you know, and tell them about the stories of their grandparents and great-grandparents. You all have a great day.